The other thing I was seeing in my practice was the number of women who'd been raped or sexually abused, unresolved stuff that was showing up in the processes of the female body. My colleagues would see women with chronic pelvic pain or with bad PMS and they'd make fun of the women and say, well, it's all in her head. Well, I knew it wasn't. And so women would tell me their stories. And I began to put together that when this many women had problems with the basic function of the female body, the menstrual cycle, breastfeeding, birth, conception, then there was something wrong with the culture, because God wouldn't make a system that was responsible for all life on earth. He wouldn't make a system that got that screwed up. This is the language of what happens to the feminine in our culture and how it hits the body. And that was my working thesis.
Well, it is with great pleasure that I get to spend some time with Dr. Christiane Northrup, who I had the pleasure of meeting a long time ago, back around 2011, 2012. And, a lot has happened since then. And this is going to be a very lively conversation again today. And I'm so excited for everyone listening to hear what you have to say, because you are probably, I think, the most advanced person I've ever had the pleasure of connecting with in the health space when it comes to women's health and the deep knowledge. And so you've been on the ground for all those years as a doctor. And I would love it if you could just run us right through from the beginning, right to today, and then we can get right into everything.
Love that idea. Yeah. Well, I grew up in a nutritionally oriented home. We followed Adele Davis. We had a compost heap. We raised Black Angus cattle. My mother spiked our orange juice with vitamin C. So we were very health conscious. And I had a couple of siblings, one who died as an infant, she wouldn't eat, and another brother who wouldn't eat. And my mother was given massive doses of antibiotics, streptomycin, for what we would call now viral pneumonia, but I don't know what it was. I just know at the time I grew up, we had a family doctor who just felt like what you did, if any one of the 5 kids was sick, you gave everybody a penicillin shot. So we were, very sort of holistic. My dad had Weston Price's book on his bedside table. He was a dentist. His brother and sister were medical doctors. Anyway, they signed my brother out of the hospital against medical advice. So I'm 7 years old, and I'm remembering feeding him with an NG tube every hour on the hour, holding up the formula. At the age of a year, he weighed 10 pounds. My mother had been told he was mentally defective, and they finally found a doctor in Philadelphia, Dr. Crump at the old Women's Medical, and she put down a fiber optic scope and saw that his esophagus was so eroded. She said, he's going to rupture the esophagus. So let's take the tube out and see what happens. Imagine that, benign neglect. Let's see if the body heals itself. After 2 days, he started to eat. We never knew what it was. And I remember seeing him for the first time with no adhesive tape. And he looked odd to me that he didn't have the tape keeping his NG tube in. My dad could put that in because he had been an oral surgeon in a MASH unit during World War II. So when I was going to medical school, and my dad was in the intensive care unit for chest pain while I was interviewing at various medical schools, my mother called him and she said, and he said, come and get me. They don't know what's going on. So she signed him out against medical advice. He has a blown up arm from an infiltrated IV. He's, the nurses are mad because he's signing out against medical advice. You don't do that. He's got chest leads hanging off him. And when I came home, he's sitting up in his chair, fluid 2/3 of the way up in his lung fields because he had infectious pericarditis. He did not have a heart attack, and he healed at home.
Mm-hmm.
So I had this is important because I had these experiences before going to med school. So then I was a biology major in college, and I never intended to go to medical school. I thought I would just get a PhD and do research. And then I quickly realized that at that time, an MD was a better degree, but I didn't intend to practice. I watched my aunt and uncle, my dad's brother and sister, and I didn't like their lifestyle. So I just decided to go to med school. And before going, I said to my mother, I just want to find out why doctors don't talk to you, why they don't, why can't we level with people? We don't know what's going on, but, maybe we can pray together, or this is what we think. Anyway, I then see a baby born, went to Dartmouth Medical School, saw a baby born. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen, almost dropped to the floor weeping. And that was it. That was it. This is what I wanted to do. I wanted to attend birth, work with women. And I also, though, I did a lot of interviewing for psychiatry residencies and family medicine, but OBGYN turned out to be it. So then I did my residency in Boston, New England Medical Center, and then met my husband in med school, my then husband, who was an orthopedic resident. And then we came to Maine. We came to Portland, Maine, and I joined a practice there. I was one of the only women at the time. And the other guys in the practice said, well, women in Maine they don't want to see women. And I thought, that's weird because in Boston they do. But, hey, and we wanted to live where we wanted to be, not in a city, not constantly commuting on the weekend. So we moved to a little town in Maine and worked at Maine Medical Center. I was an assistant clinical professor of OBGYN. I taught medical students, but I joined the board of the American Holistic Medical Association, founded by Norm Shealy, a neurosurgeon, in
Wow.
1979.
Cool.
So I had this sort of double life going on. So I'd go to the meetings of the Holistic Medical Association, many of which were out in Seattle. And then I eventually became president of that organization along with Bernie Siegel. We were co-presidents. Bernie wrote Love, Medicine, and Miracles. So I had all of these holistic mentors, but I had a conventional practice, but I had met Michio Kushi in Boston during my residency. And so I went to sit with Michio when he did his facial diagnosis. They called it Oriental diagnosis. And I watched people heal with dietary change. So I became the go-to person for the macrobiotic community, and they'd come up to Maine and see me and all the rest of it. And then in the early 80s, and this is a fun one, Family Circle magazine, which probably doesn't even exist anymore, had an article about PMS, and it was naming an experience that women had. And I did all my research on it, and I realized that was a lifestyle illness, and that if you could change their diet and get them off caffeine and sugar and all that, the PMS would go away. But they could never maintain the lifestyle choices. And then I began to realize it's because everyone with severe PMS was an adult child of an alcoholic, and they had unresolved stuff that was showing up in the processes of the female body. Between the holistic this and that, and the other thing I was seeing in my practice was the number of women who'd been raped or sexually abused. Think about it. I'm in a white middle class practice in a small town in Maine. And I remember the grand rounds around that time, and my colleagues would see women with chronic pelvic pain or with bad PMS, and they'd make fun of the women and say, well, it's all in her head. Well, I knew it wasn't. And so women would tell me their stories, and I began to put together that my working thesis that when this many women had problems with the basic function of the female body, the menstrual cycle, breastfeeding, birth, conception, then there was something wrong with the culture, because God wouldn't make a system that was responsible for all life on earth. He wouldn't make a system that got that screwed up. And so that was and I wrote a little article in the 80s for a magazine out of Cambridge, Massachusetts called Women of Power. And it was called Honoring Our Bodies. And I listed, the number of women who got breast cancer, the number of women who had menstrual cramps, 70%, 1 in 3 women will have a hysterectomy. And I just went through the whole thing and said, this is the language of what happens to the feminine in our culture and how it hits the body. And that was my working thesis. And then I met my first literary agent, Ned Levitt, do you remember Interface and Omega, those places where you'd go for consciousness raising, all of that stuff. Marilyn Ferguson, the Aquarian Conspiracy and all that. And I met Ned there, and I was into the work of Francis Scoville Shin at that time, The Game of Life and How to Play.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow.
I stood at my bedside table and I used one of her affirmations, infinite spirit, give me a sign, show me the next use of my gifts and talents. Ned calls me up. He was an agent at William Morris. And he goes, I think you should write a book. Now I did a column in East West Journal, but I was doing medicine, delivering babies. I had a couple little kids by then. And I had left conventional medicine to start Women to Women in 1985, which was one of the first women only clinics. And we had a therapist who did what's called therapia, meaning she would do depth psychology with women. So I would know what was going on physically. she would know what was going on in their lives. And we'd put the two together. Anyway, Ned calls me right after the Francis Scoville Shin thing, and he goes, I think you should write a book. And I didn't know how to write a book, but I started in, and the end result was Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom. And I had to invent a language of women's health. We didn't have a language of women's health. We still don't. Women's health is mammograms, it's smears, it's not women's health. Here's how I say women's health is this. Keep coming back. We haven't found it, but we will. And then we will remove your breasts and your cervix and your uterus and all the rest of it. So I invented a language of women's health, and that became the classic Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, which is now in its 5th edition. And that's how that all happened. And I left clinical practice in the late 90s because I began to do I did a lecture at the Chautauqua Institute, and I got a call from a couple of TV producers because their wives had given them the Chautauqua lecture, which was on NPR. And they contacted me, and I began to do some PBS specials and wrote the book, and then, was on Oprah 10 times and, all the rest of it. And, was certainly well respected. And, by now I've had 3 New York Times bestselling books. And then COVID hit. And all my affiliates, my publishers, it was like the big paddle, boom, landed. And I didn't change anything that I'd ever said or done. It was no different. And so I consider that, well, then I was named one of the Disinformation Dozen in April of 2021, along with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. We all did a seminar with 40,000 people called The Truth About COVID-19. And we had 40,000 people sign up for that. And the next day, we all lost our Instagram channels. I had 170,000 people and still can't get my name back on Instagram.
Wow, even now.
Even now. PayPal canceled me. And so I've been digging out ever since. Yeah.
Wow. Well, that tells you some pretty important energetic things.
Yeah, it does. Well, I learned.
Definitely.
Yeah, one of the things I learned was right out of the Bible, Ephesians 6:12, we battle not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities of darkness that are not of this world. But I was compelled, I feel like it was definitely part of my Aries North node. I was compelled every day to do a little thing on Instagram and Facebook, like a ministry. And at that time, I was engaged to a professor emeritus of public health. God's got a sense of humor. And he's the one who said to me, you should go up to Augusta, to the legislature in Maine, and you testify about these vaccine mandates, because our governor around that time, 2019, had removed the religious exemption to vaccines. My kids were never vaccinated. I never had any problem with that. I mean, one should never be forced to have something put into their bodies that they don't want. And in my profession, my body, my choice, if it's an abortion, but not my body, my choice if it's an injection, it didn't make any sense. So anyway, and now here we are today, and the rest is history. So the COVID thing was like a crucible, I think, in our culture. Sort of, I've learned many things. We all have. I've learned that the same people funded both sides of the world wars. I've learned about our birth certificate, which is traded on the stock exchange, our lifetime labor. I've learned about all of that stuff. So, and I've learned that The Matrix is a documentary, the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, documentary. And interesting, you mentioned the term matrix.
Yeah.
And this taps deeply into your work. If you go back to the Bible, the Textus Receptus, in the Old Testament, there are 5 references using the word matrix. And people think, well, hold it, that's a modern term. No, it's not. It's an ancient term. And the matrix is a super sacred thing, because all life, whether it's an animal, mammal, or a human, all life goes in through the matrix and comes out of the matrix, which tells you that that's the woman's reproductive organs, genitals. That is what the matrix is. And the matrix is so sacred that, because children are born, right, and never to be messed with, a very, very special thing on the earth, because every human now has come out of that matrix at one point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rebirth. And then you talk about the matriarch. That's the mom. Matrix arc. The woman's holding the matrix. That's her responsibility. Then you have the bond of holy matrimony. Well, that's because the matrix is the crucial piece of the marriage, so that there's a covenant protecting the woman and her matrix, so that there's no messing around.
Yeah.
And then and then there's a mattress that the couple lay on when they are sleeping together, and all these names. I was like, hold it.
Yeah.
What's with this matrix thing? Right. Very big deal.
Very.
And that's why marriage is not old fashioned. It's actually protective. And the men are to protect the women, to protect the matrix, not to prey on them or be predatorial, but to be protectors. And women need protection. It's not that women can't have their own protection. There's divine protection, but there's an order to things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Women aren't out building highways and skyscrapers and making airplanes. I mean, they could, but they're so much more gifted, right?
I agree. And we have gotten so far beyond that. I mean, if you look what the last 5 years have done, they split families apart. One of the most common things that I was asked during the last 5 years is, can you help me? My mate, not always, but generally the man, wants my kids to have all these injections. I don't want to. And the courts would always side with the man. And so these protections, when you think about what is masculinity, it's to protect and serve.
Right. Sure.
Yeah.
And rape. I mean, rape is a thing that is so crazy, because that little needle is a rapier. Anything injecting the human body, if it's unwanted, is rape. Could be a finger in an ear. It's like, no, that's not what, don't touch. Right. So why all of a sudden are people like, hey, you have to get raped by this needle, or you can't have a job, or you can't do this, or what? Since when?
Right.
It's a rapier. But the terminology, what I like the most about what you're hitting on is words, like the women's wisdom. Women are, if you look at any species, the female human has been attacked more than any other species.
Yes.
Like in multiple ways, whether it's spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, domestic, financial, environmental.
Yep.
Those attacks are obvious. Women have to do all the stuff that men don't have to do at all. Since when? They don't have to do any of that stuff. And a woman's body is infinitely more intelligent than a male body because of its ability to produce a baby. Are you kidding? Right. And the hormones of a woman go, and I'm preaching to the choir here, but I mean, it's just identifying, having men and women both identify what the truth is. And the big difference between a male and female and what our roles are, because when we're out of order, everything goes out of order.
Yep.
Right. And then that's where these health issues, these PMS, all these traumatic things around a woman's cycle and her reproductive organs coming from the invasion of the male species where it doesn't belong.
And now let's look at the trans agenda. I mean, now it's like you don't even have a locker room that's safe. We have gyms in our state of Maine where a male can walk in with a full beard and whatever, and the front desk has to ask, which locker room would you like? And if he says, I'm female, they've got to send him in there, even if you have your 12-year-old daughter in there with you.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's like,
Yep.
Well, that's just like blatant idiocy.
Well, it's blatant idiocy until you're talking with the people who have been conditioned. We now know about the MK Ultra programming, Kathy O'Brien's work. So people they literally don't see it. And I don't know if you've seen the different studies about what's happening to people's brains after certain treatments with the rapier. And it's like the judgment is gone. And as you know, it's been a badge of honor to a certain kind of progressive woman. And look at all the Hollywood celebrities whose children are trans. Mm-hmm. Some of them will have 4 or 5 children that are all the opposite gender. Right. It's not part of God's design at all. And I love this. Listen to this one. It's hard to believe. The American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology has taken away the word mother and inserted birthing parent.
Right.
It's insane.
Yeah, I saw some of this stuff around that. And this, again, is a war of words
Yes.
because words are what hold the universe together. So if you pervert the word at all, then you're going to reap a consequence. It's not like nobody's out to get us. We get ourselves. Right. And if we don't learn the language because the English language is very difficult too, because it has so many compound meanings and inflections. And that's where the attack is on the English language. It's the English speaking countries who are going in this weird direction.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
Right.
Canada, certainly. I mean, you're from Canada, and the stuff going there with MAID is amazing to me. The medically assisted suicide,
Right. Yeah. That's just a whole other genocidal agenda.
Mm-hmm.
But, if you look at the dates of March 22nd, 1980, which was the unveiling of the Georgia Guidestones in front of 400 people.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So that's very real. That's written in granite, lined up with the star system. It's a timepiece. They brought when they rolled out COVID for real was March 22nd, 2020. That was the day, exactly 40 years of the day, when they shut India down. And
I did not know that.
Yeah, 32. They had 32 COVID cases in India and shut the whole entire nation of, they say 1.4 billion. I've never verified the number, but that's what they say it is. I've been there. Have you ever been to India?
No.
Yeah, it's a fascinating place. It's crazy. I actually enjoyed both trips when I was there. But to shut that down, the entire country, brutally, violently, and that's what they did. That was the signal to the world that heart-shaped country shut down. And so exactly 40 years to the day. And then a little while afterwards that they torpedo the Georgia Guidestones and blow it up to let them know we've already made it. It's fully inactive. We don't need to have it standing there anymore. It's already happened.
Mm.
And so now what we're seeing is people, you're either going to believe the truth or you're going to believe the lie.
Yeah.
And the media's job is to get you to think the lie is the truth and that the truth is a lie.
Yes.
That's been their job from day one. The same thing applies to health. It's interesting how they've infiltrated what we call the high-level wellness industry.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Absolutely. I mean, you look at anyone, I don't know what generation it is, Gen X or whatever, they don't seem to be able to get through anything without a wearable or an app or their what it's like, and they go in for, I noticed this in my nieces and nephews, I'm having this blood panel of 100 different things. Why?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Right. I know, it's nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And I was asked a little while ago, what do you prefer, Whoop or Aura? I said, neither. I don't touch either of them.
That's right.
I don't wear them. I bought an Aura way back in the day, and I wore it for a little while, and I was like, and right.
I have one wearable. See that's a pedometer. It just goes in my pocket.
Right. You get your 50,000 steps a day, and you're good. Right?
10,000. Yeah.
I'm just teasing. Yeah, or even like an Apple Watch is the same. No,
I won't do that. Nope.
Like, no way.
Nope.
And what's the point? It's like, and then you become anally fixated on whatever.
Well, I watched this with fetal monitoring because I happened to be an intern when fetal monitoring landed, and I watched the C-section rate go up to 25% overnight. It had been percent, and then because no one knew how to read the monitor. To this day, and no one knows this, to this day, there hasn't been a single study, not one, showing that fetal monitoring improves outcome. All it does is increase the C-section rate. But do you think that you could labor without a Hewlett-Packard monitor in the room? No. And here's what I watched. Every couple, whether it's the woman in labor or her husband, you go in the room. How are you doing? They both look at the monitor. You have made the self an object to be observed. You remove the self from the self and make the self an object to be observed. So instead of going inside, how's your baby doing? Everyone looks at the monitor, even if it's broken, by the way, even if it's not measuring a thing. They're looking at the monitor because we've been trained to look at screens.
Right. Yeah. Outsourcing instead of just feeling where you're at. The gut feel, I think, is the most powerful thing there is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And sometimes the calculator up here overrides the gut and then we pay.
Always. In the beginning of the whole COVID thing, there was a wonderful book by, and I cannot remember his name, but he talked about the fact that the attack surface, the propaganda attack surface, was much bigger in people who had been educated in places like Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, Yale, and so on. And, when you look at my friend, Dr. Lee Merritt has just written a book called Escaping the Medical Matrix. And so she has done a deep dive on all of these medical systems. Like she's found out Pergamon Press, that is responsible for publishing many of the medical journals. Pergamon is the altar of Satan.
Hmm.
And so we know that pharmacy comes from pharmakia, which means sorcery. She also found out that the Hippocratic Oath comes from an oath to the god Apollo, who was the god of poisoning. So
Yeah, we know who Apollo is. Yeah.
yeah, they're not what we thought at all.
No. Columbia.
Yeah.
Yeah. All these terms that we became very familiar with
Mhm.
in media, and then find out that they have a super significant attachment to all these secret societies and all
Yes.
these agendas.
Yes. What's the
Yeah.
one? Paramount Plus. Paramount. That's another one. I don't know what it means, but I know it's something. It's right in there.
For sure. Oh, yeah, we're awash in it. Just like you mentioned the birth certificate and how that all the birth canal and the doctor.
Yes. Yes,
Like
that's
on and on.
right. That's
Yeah,
right.
like Jordan Maxwell's work was interesting.
Wasn't it very interesting when he showed the chains on the feet of the Statue of Liberty?
Mhm. The broken chain.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Yeah, but there's a whole bunch of timing weirdness around that, because in order to have the thousand years in the bottomless pit is when there's not a single child of the devil on the earth, because that's what binds him. There's nobody to work through.
Uh.
So he's loosed when they're all raised from the dead, because every human who has ever lived on this earth will be all raised from the dead at some point. And they will be on this earth, and then he has a short season
Right.
to
When do
do
you
his
think
thing.
that is? You got any idea?
Yeah, I don't think we're in that short season right now. I really don't. It's
Okay.
that short season will be later. And
Okay.
there's too many chronological things that people get a little bit confused on,
I know.
because you have to know origin to know destiny. You have to know alpha to know omega.
Okay.
And so alpha and origin is covered up. That's the biggest cover up ever. Why are we in bodies that are dying?
Mhm.
We're born to die. That's messed up.
Yep.
Why are we in bodies that have to have clothing? We have to have clothing. Otherwise, it would be totally chaos. The original bodies had required no clothing at all, and the environment was perfect, and there was no messing around at all.
Right.
So there's a whole thing about that, the biggest cover up ever.
Yep.
That's a whole other story.
Right.
But, the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through the word, right?
Yes. Yes.
The pulling down of strongholds. And then we don't battle with flesh and blood, even though it comes through flesh and blood. We're not battling with flesh and blood, but principalities and powers, the rulers of the darkness of this world, spiritual wickedness in high places.
Yes.
Well, what's spiritual wickedness? That is the misinterpretation of the truth to deceive somebody to believe that the lie is true and that the truth is a lie.
Yes. Yes.
And we saw that happen on steroids in 2020.
My goodness. Yes.
It's like, are you kidding?
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting. And I think what is happening right now is that there is a desire to have people on the earth who are intelligent. They're willing to stand up and take accountability for themselves. They are not going to just lay down and do what they're told. They are able to speak, and no matter how much pressure, no matter how much coercion, no matter how much forcing is done, that person will be able to stand with what is true, because it's the truth that stabilizes the person. And so okay, really, I mean, think about, you stood up, and you always had stood up, and you're an OG. I mean, the original gangster, I guess. But that's kind of a weird term too, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But we know what the OG means. And you were around not only in the natural health space, being raised in your family and seeing things at a young age, like you mentioned, but also being one-to-one direct as a doctor in a very sensitive part of the female health category for
Yeah.
many, many years.
Yeah.
And so that you can't produce that. That's all internally imprinted in you.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so then you're going more and more and more and more towards the natural, and seeing more and more delusion in the chemical synthetic, like the mammograms and the pap smears and
Yeah, it's worse than
Right?
it's ever been. I mean, it's literally worse than it's ever been. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's proliferated. And then there's many other technologies that you can examine the body. But so right now, your work has leaned women to be directed to, number one, from what I'm seeing, taking responsibility for themselves, realizing their super value. And I want you to get into that. Like, how should a woman, from all your experience, see themselves now in the light of truth and where they can stand in their power?
Okay. The first thing that women need to do is they need to stare down the sexual revolution. They need to run their sex life like their checkbook, and they need to be very discerning about what they let in. Now, if you look at Hugh Hefner was a CIA agent bringing in the Playboy Club. Gloria Steinem was a CIA. The whole feminist movement of the 60s and 70s, though it did a lot of good. My mother couldn't take out a loan in her own name when my dad died, and she was 52.
Wow.
School teachers at that time had to quit if they were pregnant. So there were some things that needed to be addressed. But on the other hand, we ushered in this sexual revolution where women were put on birth control pills. Many of them at that time were way too high dose, and every single one of them to this day is made from hormones that have been altered from naturally occurring bioidentical hormones in the body. They've all been altered so that they can be patented. So women go on birth control pills so that they are sexually free. What does that do? The birth control pill shuts down the mid-cycle spike of testosterone, and but it also changes a woman's olfactory sensibility. Now we know that women pick mates.
You mean in the sensory?
Yeah. They literally
Wow.
do not smell how a man smells, and we choose mates. You'll see this when women have lost a beloved. They will pick up his T-shirt and just take in his smell. Well, the birth control pill eliminates that. And so therefore, she's not choosing with her own wisdom. So what
Mhm.
women have been taught is that it's okay to hook up with whoever.
Mhm.
And this results in, and a man, this is the work of Dr. Pat Allen. She says, men fall in love with virtue, not vaginas. Women are taught that they have to put out sexually in order to merit male attention. So male attention becomes the coin of the realm instead of your own virtue and your own sense of yourself. So therefore, we've created an entire culture in which in 8th grade, girls, depending on who you are, where you go, girls are giving middle school boys blowjobs in order to get to be popular.
Mhm.
So we've completely messed things up. I also, Kinsey and his sex reports and all that was way off. It turns out that Kinsey he was odd sexually, very, very odd. And we now have, all the pride parades and all of that, because what they're interested in is what's called minor attracted persons. So that the agenda has become to go for pedophilia.
Right.
And so what women need to do and men is understand that there is tremendous wisdom in virtue.
Mhm.
Not that sex is dirty or wrong.
Right.
It is that you need to be very discerning, and for a woman, of who you let in. Because when a woman, all right, so this is the reflexology of the body. The cervix represents the heart. The tip of the penis in a man represents the heart.
Okay.
When a woman has intercourse and her cervix and that penis comes together, it produces a huge flood of bonding hormones in the woman. And she then begins to think about marriage and children, and all he was interested in is getting in, like
Mhm.
a nightstand kind of thing. Then she's left that flood of bonding hormones when there's no contract for sexual and social monogamy, when there's no contract for that, she's left addicted to this man, and can take her up to 2 years to get over the addiction to that guy. He doesn't call. And so you see all these women, and then what do? Men are pigs, men are terrible. No, they're not. But the woman has to strike the moral tone.
Yeah.
Most men are not going to do it. The woman has to hold up, just like what you said, the matrix. He's there to protect the matrix. Now, think about what men do. They have cars. The car has a name. It's always a woman's name.
Mhm.
It's always a woman's name. And if he values it, he's paid a lot of money for it, he'll be out there polishing the car or working on the boat or whatever. So a woman has to put a high price on her own head so that he will honor and respect her. And a woman wants to feel cherished and a man wants to be respected. And
Right.
those are the basic biologic functions. I often say to women, okay, think about it. You produce 1 egg a month. That's a lot of biology. That's a lot of, there's a lot of value that goes into producing that 1 egg a month. A guy is producing millions of sperm every day. It costs you way more biologically. So you've got to put a high price on your own head. And what that will do is it will elevate a man to protect and serve you, unless he's a narcissist. And that's 1 in 5 people.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. That's very interesting. That's a great way to literally mathematically look at it because, yeah, I've never heard anybody speak like that about that valuation of the female body. The egg is, I mean, is priceless, really.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the human body worth? You can't even put a value. It's so valuable.
That's right.
And the intelligence within the woman's body, a finely tuned instrument is a woman's body.
And what have we done to it, right? So we got a couple of plastic surgeons in Texas who decide that women need breast implants for their high school graduation so that they can attract a man. And now, because of porn, we have young women as young as 13, 14, going in to get Brazilian waxes to remove all of the pubic hair so that they they look like children. Now we're back to the pedophilia. And that's from the porn industry.
Right.
Or
Yeah. Unnatural.
yeah,
Totally unnatural.
their anal area. This is insane. And women, so think about that. You're going in for waxing. You're removing all that pubic hair that, first of all, that hurts. Second of all, you're going to create folliculitis and all kinds of things because the hair isn't meant to be pulled out by the roots. So all these things that women now do just to be acceptable to a man whose sensibilities have been ruined by pornography, because the average man, now boy, learns about sexuality through porn
Mhm.
at the age of 12. Because
Wow.
it's so, and even if your son doesn't have a cell phone, his friends do.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
so what I tell young people is, I'd literally tell a young man, do not look at this. First of all, as you know, men are visual. Don't look at this. It has the possibility of ruining all future relationships with a normal woman.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it messes with the wiring.
Completely messes with the wiring. Yeah. And no woman looks like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even if they did, it still doesn't help.
It doesn't
No.
help. No. And I remember being in Buenos Aires. I was down there dancing tango, and all the prostitutes were gorgeous women. They were all men.
Wow.
They
They're
were
all trans.
men. They were all trans. That's how perverted things have become.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't travel in those worlds, but yeah, you got to see that
Yeah.
live time. Yeah. The whole trans agenda is just, it is what it is. We have nothing to do with it. It
Right.
is terribly disappointing. Apparently, all the women who are transitioning to men have a much higher suicide rate because
Yeah. But
women.
even the other way, because I interviewed a transgendered woman who'd been a man, and she was coming out against the whole thing. She said, if I had known, I never would have done this surgery. She was unable to keep the vagina open. She had to go around all day long with a dildo to keep the passage open. But the normal thing in the body, of course, is to close that central area. And, and all this, makeup, and I guess they shave the Adam's apple and they do something with the brow. And she said, here's the problem, that the trans activists are so cruel that if you say anything, because we have a lot of detransitioners now, young Well, now, in the hospital where I was an assistant clinical professor for years, we had people doing these gender reassignment surgeries. Now, think of it. They tell you that, gender assigned at birth, that, gender is fluid. Well, then what's gender affirming surgery? If there is no genders, what is gender, affirming surgery? And they were removing the breasts of 14 and 15-year-old girls, removing the penis and the testes of male, inverting the penis into, to make it go in, or creating for girls a phallus by removing the muscles of the arm. So they just have a bone between here and here. All the muscles are gone.
Wow.
I have pictures of all of this stuff, and no
Yeah.
one wants to hear it because it's so barbaric.
Mutilation, like,
And here I am, right? And in my profession, we occasionally had to make a neo-vagina in a woman born without a vagina. It's called Rokitansky-Kuster-Hauser syndrome. And that was very difficult. But that's a female born without a vagina. So you got to create a space between the bladder and the rectum. And you've got to create a neo-vagina there, and it's hard to keep open, and you have to use skin grafts and all of that. So I understand the anatomy. And generally, God does a way better job and the other thing is they were doing this even on 11-year-olds and telling the parents that if your child thinks they're trans, if you don't do this surgery, your child will commit suicide. And many, many times what they would do is prey on the children who were already cutting themselves, the self-harming, because
right.
they needed help. But what happened was got a whole group of liberal, progressive, highly educated women, almost all white, educated at Harvard and Yale,
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be seen as with the program. And I am therefore, I am modern. I am, not one of these Christian nationalists, who believes in the Bible. And so I'm very open. I'm very liberal. And they brag about my child is trans. This is still going on. Now, I think that we now have some guardrails so that schools are not able to pursue this. But we had cases in Maine where young girls were wearing breast binders that their teachers had given them. So imagine this in the school system. You're talking to a troubled 12-year-old who's on the spectrum. They're a little bit autistic and they don't fit in. So what you're doing is you're helping them feel included. And then you say, oh, I know you feel like a boy, so I'm going to call you Tommy or whatever it is, but don't tell your parents.
Mm-hmm.
So we had that going on in so many schools in Maine. So you thought that the last 5 years was just about a virus.
Mm-hmm.
It was about a whole satanic agenda. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's magnified. Eventually, the reaper catches up with the sower, and it's
Yeah.
going to be a very ugly harvest.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's coming. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. So those wheels grind slow, but they grind.
They do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they do grind.
Why, I can go to sleep at night because I know a couple things. One, this is bigger than I am. I'm asked to do what I can, but more than that, I cannot do. And everyone has their own soul and they've made their own choices on some level.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you think about just even 1% of the population doing any of this kind of stuff. That's 80 million people. 1%.
Wow.
So we're here. What I finally woke up and realized, in the grand scheme of everything,
Yeah.
is that when it comes to the deepest level truth and the you're not just believing something, you actually
right.
are experiencing it, that it's probably 1% too. But in order to serve 1% of the world population is a little bit daunting. Of course, it could be done. But for 80 million people to be served with the truth and with the actual things that support the human body to keep itself, as you said, ageless, where the older you get, the more healthy you become.
Yes.
That's a significant industry because it takes about $10 a day. And for every million people, it's $4 billion a year revenue that you have to generate just to serve 1/80th of 1%. And so it's like, okay, where are we really?
Yeah.
And what are the most important elemental things that you consume, whether it's through the food or whether it's through something you add in, because the food doesn't have it enough. In how simple can it get? And is it affordable? Time, energy, effort, money? And the answer is yes, it is affordable. I think the biohacking world has been a massive distraction,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
right, even though the term goes, oh, look, I could do something for myself. I like the stimulation and the enthusiasm of a person taking responsibility for themselves. But if I showed up at your house to install your kitchen that you just paid $150,000 for, and it said kitchen hackers on my van, you gonna let me in your house?
Well, I worked with Dr. Mario Martinez on this book, which is my favorite book that I ever wrote, called Goddesses Never Age. And Mario has studied 700 healthy centenarians all over the world. And so he discovered what they're like. And he said they're all the same. It doesn't matter what continent they're on, what country, they're all the same. They live in subcultures of wellness. They are respected. They practice the causes of health, which would be elevated cognition, exalted emotions, and righteous anger is one of them.
Mhm.
And so he now has a thing called gluconage, where they measure, and I haven't done it yet, but they measure the markers of aging. His quote that I love is, "Getting older is inevitable. Aging is optional." And he's the only person ever hired by the Catholic Church to study stigmata. And stigmata are, the people who bleed from their palms and, recreate the wounds of Christ. And he's helped people recover from those wounds, which are often very painful. But what he discovered is that they're often healers, and because their culture has to see some stigmata. They have to see a cross here, they have to see something, or they won't heal. So he's been able to work with them to get the pain and the bleeding where it's just tolerable, but they still have something. It's a mind-body thing. But he works with Ellen Langer of Harvard, who has been the mother of mindfulness. And so the one thing that Mario taught me years ago, and when I wrote this book, he said, just don't give your age. And I notice what people do. They dig themselves into a hole by stating their age. And it doesn't matter if it's positive or negative. At my age, I think I look pretty good. Or at my age, it's too late too. And then they list the things that it's too late to do. He said all the people that he studied that are healthy, and he said it's a very fast growing population, they're always future oriented. Your garden looks great. Wait till you see it in 3 years. They
Mhm.
have good boundaries. Can I interview you today at 10? No, that's my tango lesson. I mean, they're interesting people. And when's the last time you saw a doctor? All my doctors are dead.
Yeah. Right. Huh?
So they're not participating in the model of disease screening. And you know how that's done. Okay, now that you're 50, you need to have your colonoscopy, you need to have your mammogram, you need to have your cholesterol checked. You just step out of it. I mean, I don't participate in any of that.
Yeah, me neither. I haven't had a doctor for a long time, for, well, about 22 years now. My brother was a medical doctor for 30 years, my oldest brother. And my mom had a doctor. She lived till 100, but she didn't go and get stuff. The only thing that she had to take was Synthroid, because they completely nuked her thyroid when she was in her mid-50s.
Wow.
But if she didn't take her Synthroid, messed her up. But if she took it, that's it. And she also took that laxative thing. I can't remember the name of it, because I know, you know the one I mean. It's a natural one with all the
Senna.
Senecot.
Mhm.
Senecot. She
Mhm.
took that religious every single day.
That works. That's
Yeah.
fine.
And she had a fabulous life. My dad died in 1996. She passed at 100 in 2022. And I got to spend the last year of her life with her.
That's great.
That was fun.
That's
And
great. Yeah.
and then the last day she was alive, she just had she wouldn't deal with this, like, it was obviously an ischemic thing going on down at the bottom of her left leg.
Yeah.
And it started to let go that last day. And she tried to drink her smoothie that morning, couldn't swallow. And within half an hour, she couldn't talk. And she could understand everything, but it just slowly filled her head up. And it was about 11:30 that night that she passed. And we spent the whole time, it was just an interesting experience. Had no pain at all, none. And just exited. She had terrible knees. So she had That was one thing that she always, and I gave her a treatment in 2019, 3 5-minute treatments on each knee. A
Huh?
week later, she's getting in and out of the car with no more knee pain.
I love it. I love it. What were you using?
I was using our little activator. It's a little classical Chinese medicine tool that you slap the skin, and it's a percussion frequency thing, and it releases all this stuff, but it calls action to the brain to send stem cells and peptides and hormones and enzymes and whatever.
Love it.
And it takes a week to drain, and it takes a week to heal.
Okay.
And she went from a walker to no more walker.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
See, this is the medicine of the future, where, everyone will have access to these kinds of things, because health is frequency, health is voltage. It's all those things. Yeah.
Right. Oh yeah. The thing I love about your work is that you are very much in the reality of holistic, the whole body, the whole being, right? Because it's so interconnected. And like you said about the age, now at this age, that is a psyop. That is complete mind control cult.
And the birthday song, I've told my kids, no more. You're never singing happy birthday again. You light a candle. It's literally a death ritual.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No more.
Yeah. Very interesting.
I think celebrating birthdays, that's sun conjunct sun. It's astrologically interesting. Just don't put a name on it. And it's interesting that Mary Baker Eddy, the founder of the Christian Science Church, has right in her book that birthdays are, kind of a psyop.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
great. Putting your foot down.
and again, it goes back to, 70. That's what the Bible talks about. That's 70.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody thinks you're on borrowed time from 70 on.
I know, right? Right.
Wow. You're just getting started. Literally, I'm going to be in my 70th year in less than 12 months from now. And I've never felt better in my life.
Right.
And it's been like, I'm watching people all around me have passed in their 60s and 70s.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that thought is always trying to, it's like, look at that.
I know. True.
I call it the death cult. Well,
And it is. The other thing is this. We're seeing all around us the end result of what was done in the last 5 to 6 years. There are people in my life that I know who've had 5 and 6 injections of that thing that they thought they should have.
mhm.
Their minds are gone, or they suddenly just, this has happened to 2 friends of mine. Their husbands just dropped dead.
Right.
Yeah. It's a shame.
I love getting older, because especially when you know that everything that you're doing, because look how much better you are right now, today, at what you do, experience-wise, wisdom, simplification, the greatness of your work, compared to where it was 30 years ago.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So 30 years from now, it's going to be that much even better, maybe even 10 times more, because it's going to get clearer and more definitive and simpler. But then everybody thinks, well, but yeah, your body should fall apart by then. Actually, no, because now we are health practitioners. I learned about the 15 operating systems in the body that are very simple, and it's like a chain with 15 links. If a link gets weak, you can tell right away. You better get that link strengthened up, because if it breaks, you don't die, but your body will.
Yeah.
It'll die that day if a link breaks, because every link is dependent on every link. But we've been shown how to simply take care of each link. And it's not just organ function, and it involves spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, domestic, financial, and environmental. All those areas are under attack. And the attack strengthens us. We will suffer, but we get stronger. So now we're learning, and it gets clearer and simpler. So now we just transfer the information out. It's a big game. It's like the game of life, the book, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How are you going to play it? You're going to have fun?
And then, now remember the other part. We co-author each other's biology. Mario Martinez talks about that. And so therefore, you become increasingly selective about who you spend time with.
Right.
Yeah. Because people that, you're with, that's why I wrote Dodging Energy Vampires. Just people you're with, and suddenly your energy's so drained, you think you're going to fall asleep in your soup. And they're literally sucking the energy out of you. And empathic healer types are very susceptible to that. Yeah.
Right. Are you familiar at all with Dr. David Stevens' work?
No.
So yeah, neither was I. And I think almost no one is familiar with his work. And it started in 2017, but we won't get into that right now. Was just pinging to see if anybody but I'll share that with you offline. Okay. And I would love you to look at it and give me some of your thoughts around it.
Okay.
When I first heard about it, it was quite contrary to what I would think was the right thing. But when you get this gut instinct, you think it sounds like this might be true.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was
Exactly.
one of those big hits. It was a huge hit, actually.
Okay. Great.
And so immediately the next day, I started the protocol. And I'm in my 5th week right now
Okay.
and seeing huge upgrades. So, but yeah, we'll talk about that offline. Now, as far as your book, so when did you write this most recent book, The Goddess's Book?
That was in 2015. That was my last time on Oprah.
Okay. And did you write another book recently?
Then I wrote Dodging Energy Vampires. Then during COVID, I wrote The Mom's Guide to the COVID Shot, which was highly controversial, and because I just put pictures in it. And my most recent book is, being shopped around right now. It's called Made in the Image of God.
No.
We don't have, I wanted to do it with a traditional publishing, and so I have an agent, and we're getting that ready to go.
When does it roll out?
I don't know yet. We gotta, yeah. I realized something, that I wanted to use scripture and I wanted to use the wisdom of what Jesus taught in the Bible. And so I needed to go to a Christian publisher because
Right.
I found that the new age people are the ones who canceled me completely during COVID. And this was a shocker to me, because I thought, wait a minute, I thought we were all on the same page. And I learned that I just learned that there's some things that the so-called new age world doesn't quite get. Like they say things like, well, evil doesn't exist.
Right.
Good luck with that.
Good, and even the term "good luck," good Lucifer.
Yeah. Ooh, that's good. Well, I learned all about, the Vatican telescope called Lucifer.
Mm-hmm.
And luciferase was one of my, that's what they put in one of the shots, luciferase.
Right.
I had a medical intuitive friend, and I told her what luciferase looks like, and she can literally see it in the people who had that particular injection, because it's green and luminescent.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. The luminescence is
the
that's the
fall.
whole Paulian thing.
Yep, yep, right.
Yeah. Very interesting dynamics. Now, as far as lifestyle for women, particularly, because we've covered quite a bit of bases like, I know that every diet is tailored specifically custom for each person, what works for them. I'm not into diets personally.
Yeah.
What do you find is the most effective things that a woman could do right out of the gate as far as functional, foundational things?
More protein, more animal protein for most. I dealt for years with vegans, and I noticed after about 10 years, their hair and their nails would get all brittle and all the rest of it. So, and I noticed that vegans, if they're really strict, they don't get enough fat in their diet to keep their brain functioning well. And many of them become very angry. It's like they somehow don't have the insulation on the wiring, as it were. So generally, I would say eggs, organ meats, whatever. And are you familiar with what's her name? Dr. Annette Bosworth? I love her work, Dr. Boz, and she's on YouTube, and she recommends, just for starters, to see what would happen, her sardine challenge. So you do just nothing but sardines for 3 days, packed in olive oil.
Right.
And what happens then is insulin levels, of course, come way down. You get good omega-3 fats going way up to help your brain. And it's a fantastic reset. Some get into ketosis, so they're burning ketones, but that's not for everybody. But I would recommend this 3-day sardine challenge, because it's kind of like okay, that'll reset things. Then from there, you go on to other things. In general, I am friends with the medical medium, Anthony. Why can't I remember his last name? Anyway, Anthony William. And he's from Maine, and his whole thing is vegan, plant-based. And I found that that's not sustainable for most people. And especially in the winter months, if you're just doing raw food, that's not how we should probably all live at the equator and run around in a loincloth, but that's not going to be happening. So you need some food to sustain you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, his work is interesting. I ran into it a few years ago and looked at it for a minute. The throwing out of the eggs was a very good thing for the bad eggs, but there's a beautiful egg that you can get that is absolutely powerful. and we grow our own eggs. We have our own hens.
Nice.
And
Yes.
my wife runs that, and she keeps care of these hens like they're
Like
very
they're
good.
children. That's wonderful. That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
And,
Yeah.
you just, how much have you got into the advanced glycation end product?
Not very much.
Yeah. Because you mentioned the glycan age thing and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's a thing. It's definitely a thing. And it's measurable. There's a pretty big movement coming on it right now. I started running into it more and more last December at A4M.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And it was an eye opener. I got measured
Yep.
and coming in at about 64, where, because I was just in my 68, I was whatever, 69 here. But yeah, it's just a measurement you want to have. And then I did some treatments. I was 14 years younger
Okay.
on the
Well,
measurement.
that's
It's a galvanic kind of a reading, but there's something, it's a real thing. And as how you prep the food, and you can just, pressure cook things, that helps a lot
mhm.
to have that broken up,
Yeah.
getting that cross-linking broken up. So without being completely radical about stuff. So
Right. Right.
it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's all about getting the intelligence. And you've been sharing very high level intelligence by just simply, obviously your brain works extremely well because
Yeah.
you,
It does.
right, you were able to observe and observe and absorb and then structure things and then put the information out and serve all these people. I think your work needs to completely be magnified. It was happening before and then they canceled you.
Yeah.
I know people who've gotten their accounts back. They
I have Facebook, Instagram. I think I have real Christian Northrup. But,
right,
but what's interesting, because I'm one of the disinformation dozen, they have put interesting bugs in. You can't actually find them. Let me give you an example. So Erin Elizabeth, who had a huge X following, she'll post, for instance, a link to a sauna from a company she knows and trusts. And the social media company will change the link to another company that's woke. And she won't have any control over that.
huh,
She was one of the first to report on the 11 physicians who were killed for their stance on vaccines.
right,
So, but you're right. I mean, we can't fight Satan. You can't fight. We have to know who we are. And if we're made in the image of God, and Luke 10:17, I think it is, you can step on serpents and scorpions and never be hurt. That's who we actually are, humans. And I think once we understand that, we'll wake up a lot sooner.
right. And it also says, be wise as a serpent and gentle as a dove.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
So the wisdom of the enemy, we have to understand what's happening. We don't want to be ignorant about agendas.
No,
But at the same time, we know that they know that we know that they know. We're not messing with them.
that's
Right.
exactly right. That's
Yeah.
why I see what I see coming is that things are going to open up again for people like me. I've had to completely redo everything because, I literally got canceled by my publishers, by my e-news, by everybody, just like, and I have compassion for them. Got so many people landing on them. What, you're working with Northrup, so the poor people on the front lines would get so much hatred, so
Yeah. Were you able to maintain a good email
yeah.
following?
Yeah, I have a very good email. Yes. Yeah. And I'm going
That's
to
good.
launch the website later this year at some point. We've just moved that over. So everything's been a reinvention, which is really good. I mean, it's really good, because the work needed to be upgraded and all the rest of it. Yeah.
Right. So people they'll find you on Facebook, and then your website itself right now. What's your primary?
Yeah. It's perfectly workable. drnorthrup.com,
Yeah,
NORHRUP. Yep.
yep. I'll make sure I post everything in the show notes as well.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And then the collaboration's great. I love your work, and it's like it took a long time. I think I wasn't ready to do a collab back in the day. It was like I had to go through all that stuff from 2011, 2012 till now, just to be ready. Because I don't like to push myself into anything anyway.
Right.
Right? You just want to. It happens organically. That's when it happens the best, and then everything works.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah, I really appreciate the work you're doing. It's a lot of fun. And everything you shared today was awesome.
Thank you so much. And I want to learn more about your work as well. So thank you.